Detection isn't the challenge. It's understanding what happened and what to do. MSSPs face alert overload and fragmented workflows where speed without clarity leads to risk. Today, Lee Sult from Binalyze joins us to discuss how MSSPs can move beyond alert-driven firefighting to conduct faster, conclusive investigations and build stronger customer trust. Welcome, Lee.
Awesome. Thank you. Glad to be here. And thanks to the audience as well.
Lee, what big cybersecurity trends do you see shaping 2026 and beyond?
Great question. I think a lot of that's going to be on the business side. I think there's going to be some implications for MSSPs as well. I'm fairly certain there's going to be some more product consolidation as we go through 2026 and into 2027. That's going to have some implications on alert pipelines, things along those lines. And I also think that that's going to position MSSPs to take quite a bit more power than they already have. We'll see some enterprises move away from internal teams or start to invest in MSSPs alongside those internal teams. And lastly, I think the biggest trend that we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years is investment in human and computer symbiosis, or AI, trying to figure out exactly where that AI is. And I guess the last piece on that, on the AI part, is a lot of folks are treating AI like a technical problem, and they're not thinking of it in more of like a procedural or integrating more broadly in a security program way. It's going to be the MSSPs that really tackle that challenge outside of a particular vendor product. The folks that think about that really from a human-computer symbiosis perspective are going to win.
Alert fatigue is everywhere. Why isn't detection the real problem anymore?
Well, we certainly don't have a shortage of alerts anywhere. And I think, over the past couple of decades, most of the products that have been built in this field, there's a lot of network traffic, there's a lot of traffic and events on endpoints, and most of the emphasis has been placed on detecting those. And I think it's not exactly real to call that visibility because we're just drowning in all of the noise, right? I mean, it's a very common thing. We've talked about this for a very long time, but at the core problem there is we're not actually looking at direct evidence most of the time. We're looking at telemetry data. Some of that's high value, most of it is not. I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's really being able to have access to that direct evidence. So when for example, you have a piece of malware land, it creates an alert and, it'll say, hey, this has been quarantined. I work with a lot of SOC analysts that'll just say, hey, it was quarantined, that's over. But how did the malware get there in the first place? For me as an investigator, that means an attacker may have had interactive access with that system. And the current alert pipelines that we have just can't collect that direct evidence.
Lee, where do traditional incident response methods fall short today?
Sure. That's 2 places. Number 1, it's slow and painful to collect the direct evidence, the forensically sound artifacts that we need to conduct an investigation. And 2, it's inconsistency in investigative methodologies. Binalyze very clearly solves the first one, especially on endpoints and things like Office 365 and Google Cloud. We collect over 800 artifacts. We do that with a server client model. Make it very simple. Click of a button. You can predefine evidence collection profiles and exactly the forensic artifacts that you need to collect to solve a problem. Second to that, we have our investigation hub, which really makes it a lot simpler to answer those core 4 questions that are relevant to any investigation. It's simple enough that even folks straight out of college or straight out of a cybersecurity program can come in, take a look at the platform, and start to draw correlations between the detections that we render and the direct forensic artifacts. It's no longer the situation where you have to have 20 years of experience and understand exactly what every single forensic artifact does.
Now let's dive a little bit deeper. Lee, what is forensic clarity and why does it matter?
Sure. When you get an alert, you think something's happened. This is tantamount to having a fire alarm go off, and then the fire alarm calls a 911 dispatch center, and you send a firefighter out. So that alert is generally not validated until there's some interaction with it by those first responders or those firefighters, etc. That forensic clarity comes in once you actually make entry to that theoretical burning building. You can identify, is there actually smoke showing? Are there flames showing? What's the severity of this incident? So on and so forth. It does come back down to collecting that direct evidence, and it really comes back to defining how large, like what does a large case look like? How quickly can I collect that direct evidence and analyze it and so on? 20 years ago, a large case was 5 systems. Now, a large case for us is thousands, potentially tens of thousands of systems. And that's a problem that we're here to solve, and that's something that we enable MSSPs to respond to.
You pioneered the forward deployed security engineer model at Palantir. How does Binalyze use that idea to democratize incident response?
Great question. So, as a forward deployed security engineer, the thing that we did was we solved really hard problems, basically building the security program around the operator. We wanted to make sure that any of the data that needed to be pulled in, any of the processes that needed to be built out, any of those types of things were sufficient to yield a tier one response. At Binalyze, we want to democratize that. So we want to take that program, we want to build it here, support our MSSP partners instead of just the enterprises. And that helps us bring that tier one level response over to all of the other MSSPs. We no longer want this to be the Green Beret Delta Force Special Forces issue. This now needs to be like a firefighting problem where you can go to the fire academy, come out, you're on a fire truck on day one, and you're useful to the public.
Now, in order to be successful, what are the core four questions in an investigation and why are they so critical?
Sure. Many times, still to this day, when we look at these incident response cases, you get a lot of you get a 100-page report that says all of these. It just has an excessive amount of technical jargon. It's very relevant to me as an investigator or the detection engineers or the folks that need to do something about this at the very technical level. But there are four questions that are relevant to the business, ultimately the victim, and the insurance carriers so that we can recover from this incident and put the bad stuff behind us. And those four questions are number one, does the attacker still have access to the environment? Which systems are affected? How did the attacker get in? And which data is at risk? And the first two of those questions are what I would consider the firefighting stage of an incident, where if we show up and the attacker has access, we basically have something like an apartment complex that's got flames showing. It's a severe incident, so we need to, it changes our response paradigm and changes the amount of resources that we're going to apply to that particular incident. As we start to get down there, some things need to have more accurate answers. So we're going to have different collection profiles. We're going to have potentially different types of investigators or different types of analysts. Insurance and law firms are going to care about these questions towards the tail end a little bit more. So once we say, if we walk into an environment and we know that the attacker still has access, once we turn that yes into a no, they no longer have access. Now we start caring a lot more about which data is at risk, how many computers need to be replaced or reformatted, things along those lines. And making that a much more approachable step-by-step process for MSSPs is the same way we turn this into a Green Beret Delta Force problem and into somebody can go to fire academy or law enforcement academy, graduate, and be useful on day one.
How is Binalyze helping MSSPs move from that reactive firefighting to proactive response?
Sure. For many years, it's kind of teaching the other side of the coin. There's a big theme on this right now. In the investigation circles, we spent a lot of years talking about what does good look like. Well, MSSPs look at good a lot, and we don't really have an opportunity to look at what bad is. So you have these continuing on with the firefighting analogy. Some fire departments deal with structure fires all the time. But if you get a rural firefighting agency, or if you just get a slow station in a busy city, the firefighters there aren't going to have access or have that training on what bad looks like. So we make that a lot easier. We make these, fire apparatus, our software platforms, as easy to use as possible, and you call it foolproof as possible. We make sure the hoses on the fire trucks are stacked in such a way so you just have to grab them, they don't get tangled up or things along those lines. And then we support them with training on what bad looks like. They know what good looks like. So what does bad look like? When do you stop an investigation? Like, when is that? What is good enough for that investigation? When does that look complete? So it comes back to the same sort of thing. We're providing software that's easy to use. We're providing that training. We also provide a backstop. And then once we know what that bad looks like, we can look for it proactively. So we can conduct that investigation in a proactive fashion, more advanced threat hunts with direct evidence instead of just telemetry data. We also do, this is probably the biggest thing, we can do forensic snapshots. So you bring on a new customer, they're clean. You take a snapshot then. You take another snapshot 30 days from now, and you'll see what's changed. Are there any new registry keys? Are there any new executable binaries? Are there any new suspicious drivers? You're not looking at a million things. You're looking at a couple hundred, and it just makes the whole process a lot simpler.
Talk about making things easier. AI and automation are changing the game. How is Binalyze using them to close the skills gap?
Great question. Again, we spend a lot of time internally thinking about human and computer symbiosis. And we recognize that humans are good at some things, adding context, there's human judgment, there's just the perception of the five senses that we have beyond what a computer can sense. And computers are really good at taking that context, enumerating through a lot of things, doing that research and providing a lot of options. And the same thing, there's the human, there's the data pipeline, deterministic process, and then there's the non-deterministic AI at the end of it. So we're spending an awful lot of time, very much in a Palantir, Silicon Valley fashion, uh, product boards, the whole thing, understanding exactly where the human should be in this loop, where deterministic process should be in this loop, and where the AI should be in this loop. We've got some folks on the pilot program. I mean, I'm not going to put numbers out there. I'm not going to take the thunder away from some of our serious innovators in the company, but it's looking very positive. And the things that we're seeing, brand new folks in cybersecurity do, like the L1 analysts, man, I wish I would have had this 20 years ago.
Now, cybersecurity isn't just technical, it's human. How can MSSPs tackle the talent shortage and siloed workflows?
This is a problem that our FDSA team helps solve. And it's easy to say AI, right? And it's easy to go back to the human and computer symbiosis discussion that we were just having. I think it's larger than that. I think as part of it is understanding that it's no longer that tier one Green Beret problem. This is now a democratized thing. It's just the tip of the democratized era of incident response. So solving this talent shortages are going to come down to realizing that we can really start to hire entry-level folks now and start doing a pretty good job. We've got some progress to make, but we can hire some entry-level folks and start to make a good job there. We've got tooling that makes that possible and easier to approach. It lowers that barrier of entry significantly. You don't have to have 20 years of experience to know exactly which forensic artifact does what anymore. We help solve that problem. The other thing is really having organizations wrap their head around the business relevant questions that need to be asked and answered during an incident response case. There's that firefighting phase, and then there's that follow-on arson phase. We need to focus on the firefighting phase first. Cybersecurity, we need to make it easy to put the fire out. And as soon as we do that, we can spend the rest of that time on the arson investigation and putting the house back together.
Now, looking ahead, what's next for Binalyze and MSSPs in this evolving threat landscape?
Sure. Outside of our outpost and fleet programs that are coming, again, our CEO, Emre, I don't want to steal his thunder. He's got some really innovative things coming. But we have several, I guess, aspects of our product that are in beta, several new products that are in beta right now. We made the active choice to put them all out there because we're collecting different types of data. We've got we own the endpoint. We've got all the forensic artifacts, over 800 of them or something at this point, from Linux, Mac, OS X, AIX. I mean, you name it, we collect it. And if you run into something we don't, we'll fix that too. But now we're starting to collect things from Office 365, Google Workspace, Slack, Salesforce, HubSpot, these types of SaaS applications, and we're bringing all of that together in one investigative workflow. So that's certainly very relevant for traditional APT or ransomware style attacks where those types of platforms are being affected. Helps with business email compromise cases, those types of things. But now we're starting to see expanded use cases where we're testing configurations to determine if the environment may be susceptible to attack and which routes the attacker might take. We're also seeing much more powerful workflows for insider threat, as well for like just standard employee offboarding and things like that.
Lee, a lot of great information. Can you tell us where we can go to learn some more?
Absolutely. Visit us at www.binalyze.com.
Lee, thanks again for your valuable insights and for guiding us through the future of cybersecurity. Really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thanks again to the audience.
For the Channel Company, I'm Kenna Johnson.